Get your dirty hands away from that car, boy. You people should know your place. Preston Whitmore grabbed the 13-year-old by his collar and shoved him backward. Beatrice, I don't pay you to bring your kid to work. This isn't a zoo. He threw a push broom at Raymond's feet. Make yourself useful. Sweep. That's all your kind is good for anyway. The technicians laughed. 18 grown men watching a child be humiliated. Not one spoke up. Raymond's mother rushed over, hands trembling as she gripped her son's shoulders. Her eyes begged him, "Please, not here, not now." Raymond picked up the broom, but his gaze never left the Ferrari's open engine bay. That same engine had defeated every expert in the world for 18 months. The billionaire owner had spent $2.3 million. Zero results. Have you ever been dismissed because of how you looked, not what you knew? The Ferrari 250 GTO sat on the hydraulic lift like a wounded king, red paint gleaming under harsh service lights, chrome exhaust pipes catching reflections, one of only 36 ever built, worth more than most people would earn in 10 lifetimes. Theodore Harrington stood beside his car with hollow eyes. The 68-year-old billionaire had built Harrington Dynamics from nothing. Aerospace contracts, defense technology, a fortune measured in billions. But none of that mattered now. His father had bought this new Ferrari in 1962, drove it home from the dealership in Modena, Italy, taught a young Ted to drive on empty California roads, the V12 engine singing through the hills. 2 years later, his father was gone. Heart attack at 51. The car became everything. A time machine, a conversation with a ghost, the only place Ted could still hear his father's voice. Then came his son, Michael. Ted taught him to drive in this same Ferrari. Watched the boy fall in love with the mechanical heartbeat under the hood. Father and son connected across generations by 12 Italian cylinders. 15 years ago, Michael died. A drunk driver. Wrong place, wrong time. 23 years old. Now the Ferrari was all Ted had left. The last thread connecting him to the two people he loved most. And for 18 months, that thread had been unraveling. The problem started small. A hesitation during acceleration. A tiny stumble that most drivers would never notice. But Ted noticed. He knew this car like he knew his own heartbeat. Something was wrong. He brought it to Titan Automotive, the most exclusive service center on the West Coast. Preston Whitmore III ran the operation. Ivy League education, family connections, a reputation for handling vehicles worth more than small countries. The diagnosis took 3 weeks. The bill came to $48,000. Fuel injection system recalibration, Preston announced confidently. Problem solved. It wasn't solved. 2 months later, the hesitation returned. Worse this time. The engine would stumble, catch itself, stumble again. Sometimes it stalled completely. Ted brought it back. Another diagnosis, another bill, $92,000. Ignition timing assembly, Preston declared. Completely rebuilt. You won't have any more issues. He was wrong. Over the next 18 months, Ted Harrington took his Ferrari to 5 different service centers across 3 countries. Maranello, Italy, the Ferrari factory itself. Technicians who had worked on Formula One cars examined every component, found nothing conclusive. Charged $200,000, a specialist in Munich, then another in London, then the top vintage Ferrari restorer in Connecticut. The bills mounted. The problem persisted. $2.3 million spent. Computer diagnostics, compression tests, fuel analysis, electrical mapping. Every expert said the same thing. We cannot find anything wrong. But something was wrong. Ted could hear it, feel it. The car was crying for help and no one understood its language. Now he stood in Titan Automotive's service bay, listening to Preston Whitmore deliver the same empty promises. Our team has conducted a comprehensive analysis, Preston said smoothly. We've identified several potential contributing factors. Stop. Ted's voice was quiet. Tired. I've heard this speech before. From you. From a dozen others. Just tell me the truth. Preston's confident smile flickered. The truth, Ted, is that this vehicle is 62 years old. Some problems simply cannot be solved. Perhaps it's time to consider other options. Don't. Ted's eyes went cold. Don't tell me to give up on this car. In the corner of the service bay, Raymond Nelson swept the floor. The broom moved in slow, methodical strokes. His body performed the task automatically, but his mind was somewhere else entirely. He watched the technicians huddle around the Ferrari, heard fragments of their conversation, technical terms that would confuse most 13-year-olds. Raymond understood every word. Fuel pressure variance, ignition timing drift, carburetor float levels. He had learned this language in a cluttered garage across town, learned it from hands that had touched Enzo Ferrari's own cars, learned it through 5 years of patient teaching that nobody knew about. The engine was running now. The technicians had started it for another diagnostic. Raymond kept sweeping, kept his head down, kept being invisible. But he was listening. And then he heard it. A flutter, a microscopic hesitation in the engine's rhythm, so brief that electronic sensors would round it off as normal variation, so subtle that trained technicians standing 3 feet away noticed nothing. Raymond's broom stopped moving. He knew that sound. Had heard it once before in Giuseppe's garage, an old Alfa Romeo with a problem that stumped mechanics for months. The memory surfaced clearly. Giuseppe's weathered hands pointing to a section of fuel line, his accented voice explaining how rubber aged invisibly, how heat cycles over decades could degrade material from the inside while the outside looked perfect. Raymond's eyes moved to the Ferrari's engine bay, traced the fuel delivery system, found the section of line that curved too close to the exhaust manifold. There. He knew what was wrong. I'm done. Ted Harrington's words fell heavy in the silent service bay. I'm donating the car to the Peterson Museum. Let them figure it out, or let it sit behind glass forever. I cannot watch it die slowly anymore. Preston's face showed relief disguised as sympathy. That's probably the wisest decision, Ted. Some things simply cannot be saved. Do not. Ted's voice cracked. Do not tell me this is wise. This car is my father. This car is my son. And I'm abandoning them both. He turned toward the exit, shoulders bent. A billionaire defeated by a problem money couldn't solve. Raymond watched him walk away. The broom handle felt heavy in his hands. His mother's warnings echoed in his mind. Stay invisible. Stay quiet. These people don't want to hear from us. But Raymond also heard Giuseppe's voice. Every machine tells you what's wrong. The only question is whether you're humble enough to listen. This machine was screaming, and nobody was listening. Raymond set down the broom. Mr. Harrington? The voice was young, clear, steady. Ted stopped walking, turned around. A 13-year-old boy in worn clothes stood in the middle of the service bay. The same boy Preston had handed a broom 20 minutes earlier. I know what's wrong with your car, sir. Silence crashed through the room. Then laughter. Derek Sullivan, the lead technician, doubled over. Kid, that's adorable, but maybe stick to sweeping. Preston's face turned crimson. Beatrice, he shouted, control your son immediately. This is beyond inappropriate. Raymond's mother rushed forward, reaching for his arm. Her voice was a desperate whisper. Baby, please. We can't afford this. Mama. Raymond looked at her. His eyes were calm, certain. I know I can do this. Ted Harrington raised his hand. The room fell silent. "Let him speak." "Ted, you cannot be serious." Preston stepped forward. "This is a child, the son of a cleaning woman. He has no training, no credentials, no qualifications whatsoever." "Preston." Ted's voice cut sharp. "Your credentials have cost me $2.3 million in 18 months. I can spare 5 minutes for someone new." He turned to Raymond. "What's your name, son?" "Raymond Nelson, sir." "And you think you know what's wrong with my Ferrari?" Raymond nodded. "Everyone's been listening to what the computers say, but the computers don't hear what I heard. Your car is trying to tell you something, and I know what it is." Preston Whitmore saw his authority crumbling. A black child was being taken seriously over his expert opinion, in his own facility, in front of his own staff. "Fine," he said sharply. "If Mr. Harrington wants to entertain this circus, we'll do it properly. I'm calling Ferrari North America, the Automotive Certification Board. We'll arrange a formal evaluation." He smiled coldly at Raymond. "1 week from today. You'll have 90 minutes to diagnose the problem in front of qualified witnesses. When you fail, and you will fail, it will be documented permanently." Preston turned to Beatrice, lowered his voice to a hiss. "If your son embarrasses this company, you'll never work in this city again. Not as a maid, not as anything. I'll make certain of it." Beatrice's face went gray. Her hands trembled, but before she could pull Raymond away, her son spoke. "Mama." She looked at him. This strange, brilliant boy she had raised alone. This child who spent weekends in an old man's garage. This son who saw things others couldn't see. "I can do this," Raymond said. "Mr. Giuseppe taught me. I know I can do this." Beatrice thought of every time she had told him to stay quiet, stay small, stay safe. She thought of his father, who died with dreams unfulfilled. She looked at Preston Whitmore's smug face. Then she straightened her spine. "My son doesn't lie, Mr. Harrington. If he says he knows, he knows." The challenge was set. 7 days. News traveled fast through San Francisco's automotive community. A 13-year-old boy claiming to solve what defeated the world's best. The Maid's son challenging certified experts. Preston made sure journalists knew about it. He wanted witnesses for the humiliation. He never considered that he might be wrong. If you've ever been told you were too young or too different to matter, stay with this story. In 7 days, Raymond Nelson will face a tribunal expecting him to fail. What happens next will leave every one of them speechless. 5 years earlier, on a sweltering August afternoon, an 8-year-old Raymond Nelson sat on the curb watching his mother cry. Their Honda Civic had died 3 blocks from her cleaning job. Smoke rose from under the hood. The transmission warning light glowed angry red. Beatrice had already called 2 repair shops. Both quoted over $600. Money she didn't have. Money that would take months to save. Missing work meant no paycheck. No paycheck meant no rent. No rent meant the street. Raymond watched his mother's shoulders shake, watched her press her palms against her eyes, watched her whisper prayers to a God who seemed very far away. "Mama," he said quietly, "can I look at it?" She almost laughed. Almost. But something in his voice stopped her. "Baby, you're 8 years old." "I know, but can I look?" She had nothing left to lose. She popped the hood. Raymond stood on his tiptoes and stared at the engine, a maze of metal and rubber and mystery. He didn't understand any of it, but he wanted to. The next morning, Raymond walked 2 miles to the Oakland Public Library. He found the automotive section and pulled every repair manual he could reach. Chilton guides, Haynes manuals, pages filled with diagrams and specifications. He understood maybe 10%, but he copied everything into a composition notebook, drew the diagrams by hand, wrote questions in the margins. Then he went home and watched YouTube videos until his eyes burned. Engine repair tutorials, transmission diagnostics, fuel system breakdowns. For 7 days, Raymond lived in that Honda's engine bay. His small hands fit into spaces adult mechanics couldn't reach. His fingers traced wires and hoses, matching them to the diagrams in his notebook. On the 8th day, he found it. A loose connector in the transmission sensor. Corroded pins that weren't making proper contact. A problem that 2 shops wanted $600 to fix. Raymond cleaned the connector with a toothbrush, secured it with electrical tape borrowed from a neighbor. The Honda started on the first try. Beatrice Nelson held her son and wept. Different